What's good, everybody? Welcome to the Reimagine I Am the Change podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Sherman Webb Middlebrooks, a lifelong Buffalo resident and full-time black man. And as always, I am joined by my player partners, the good brother Antoine Johnson and the good brother Daniel Robinson. And as you can see, we got a special guest again here to chop it up, have good conversation, just reimagining the change here in the city of Buffalo, but not only in the city of Buffalo, just for us as men in general. So go ahead and introduce yourself, good brother.
Oh, man, Ron Dixon from the city of Buffalo, Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency, Special Projects Manager, Crime Prevention.
Yeah, so basically my man Ron Dixon does everything under the sun over there at the city of Buffalo, man. He's a jack of all trades, working on our behalf over there in the mayor's office. So it's a privilege to have you here on the podcast. But outside of that, I just know you through doing the Nurturing Fathers program. That was how we had the privilege of meeting each other. So just really getting the chance to see you and gain a respect for you and everything that you contributed to the conversation, your perspective as a father. But also, I think at that time you were about to get engaged. And so I just remember just the pride that you had, and it was cool just hearing a man talk about the excitement of getting engaged to his woman. So that was my first impression of meeting you, good brother. So privileged to have you on the platform.
Oh, man, that's super dope. Definitely, I do remember that. And that was a pivotal time in my life, because I think having a child early, 23, and now I'm 33, and then getting married too, right, to a woman that's not from my daughter, right? It was definitely something where I had to learn to prioritize things. And so at that time, getting the Nurturing Father, I learned so much through that. And it was really like one of the first times I saw black men coming together and saying, hey, here's our issues, how we address them. And then here goes some ways that we can address it effectively, and then actually going back and implement it in the household. So I thought that was super dope. And so it was a blessing to be a part of that. So I appreciate that. I definitely remember that.
I wanted to talk about something in relation to that. But first, I wanted to share this quote, though. And I don't even know who said it, but they said most of us spend too much time on what's urgent and not enough time on what's important. Too much time on what's urgent, not enough time on what's important.
That's good.
I definitely feel like that, as men, I think about people like Daniel and I, like, even you too, just 'cause I know y'all, and like I know, more often than not, when something comes up, somebody asks us to do something, we're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, right? We sometimes we don't even give it any thought. And those are the quote unquote urgent things, especially if it's urgent to somebody else, then it becomes like, oh, we got to hurry up and act on it. So I'm gonna kind of stop. I just want to kind of see what y'all think about that.
I mean, come over here with that one, man. I got a problem saying no. I'm always putting too much on my plate. But it goes back to one of the things that we learned during our Oshai week, man. You just gotta learn how to say no to certain things.
Oh, personal ecology.
Yeah, personal ecology. Like, it's a real thing. Yeah. And while we sit here and preach it, I know damn well I don't practice it myself. Yeah. But I'm trying. It's hard,
It is hard.
You feel a responsibility and a commitment to, your community, your family. For me, it's the young people I work with. So it's like you're always trying to stretch yourself. And oftentimes we stretch ourselves way too thin.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's real. I think, and we're conditioned like that early. I think especially when you grow up with no father in the household, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of the responsibility falls on you. Like, it was just me and my older brother, right? And so a lot of the responsibilities fell on us of, going out and doing, right? All the manual labor work around the house, the making sure our sister was good, like all of that was really fell on me and him. Yeah. And so I think you'll take on more responsibility, because my grandmother from the South, her mindset was like, you don't work, you don't eat as a man, right? And I think that resonated with all of us. But I think at the end of the day, it's really almost a toxic mentality to think like that, right? Because at the end of the day, if I'm hungry, I should just be able to go in the kitchen and cook, right? The mentality for a man and a woman is very different. Her mindset could be like, she could just go in the kitchen and whip it up first thing when she wake up. A man, like, oh, we got to hit outside first. So before we even nurture ourselves and pour into ourselves, we've been conditioned to we got to go put some work in and earn the right to eat. And so I think that goes into that urgency piece where, like, we'll jump out and go do in the community, or we'll go and do for the family, or we'll go and do for the people who need, if we have access to it, because that we taught that that's how we're supposed to be a man. And the whole time, it's like what we did, we lacked pouring into ourselves. And I think I'm learning now reason why I was so anxious with the fiance piece, man, she's been such a bright light. And I think some of the things were in our relationship where I give her the safe space to speak freely, like be blunt, honest. And one of the things she say to me is like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so she say, you want to pour from your overflow. So meaning like, I need you to pour into you first. And then when I pour into me, now I can show up better for somebody else. But if I'm on 30% and I'm showing up, you're not going to get the best version of me when I show up. And I know that's all of us in some dynamic, you know what I'm saying, where I might have to pivot. I know there's a time I pivot with bro, like, bro, you good? Like, let's just pivot right here. Let's just chop it up. Like, what's going on? We just chop through the day and vice versa. Bro don't call me on some things where I've been going through some things and he like, man, yeah, you good? You just want to chop it up first before we even go into business because, bro, like, man, I see your energy a little low right now. Let's vibe first. Business is going to be taken care of. So I think to that point, man, we are conditioned mentally to go after urgency first versus what important, which is that family nucleus piece.
Yeah. I like that part because I think a lot of times, to everything that y'all said, I think we're conditioned that way, and I'll just speak for myself. Not only are we socially conditioned that way, I myself derive, and I say this like all the time, that I derive a bit of my ego from like my ability to help people. So like that's like what I feel like my superpower is. That's what my calling is. So like I'm always looking for a reason to say yes. Before I'm looking for a reason to say no, just mainly because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be out here doing. So it's a combination of everything that you're saying. So it's like, all right, this is my calling, this is what I'm here for. This is also like how I provide. So the more I do this, the better provider I am. And then who doesn't want to have like respect, admiration, and reverence in the community and being known for helping people. So like, if you're gonna have like an ego about anything, I feel like let's direct it towards like service and acts of service. But I think what has been working for me recently is moving with more practicality and pragmatism. So just because something is like urgent, just because something is bright and shiny and looks like a great opportunity, I've gotten to know myself a lot better to understand like that might look cool, but is that part of my journey? Is that part of the story that I want to tell for myself? So, and is the people and places that are having whatever's going on, like, is that a relationship that I want to maintain? Is that something that I find value in? So like if somebody or something that I find tremendous value in hits me up, then it becomes urgent to me, whether it's urgent to them or not. So like if one of these brothers say, yo, let's do X, Y, and Z, well, I value you and I value our relationship. So it's the person who invited me to come do X, Y, and Z. You could have status, you could have whatever somebody else might value and look at, but if I don't value that and you invite me or bring me into something, then it's easier for me to pass on it, no matter how bright and shiny the opportunity might look, because it's not part of my purpose, and I don't necessarily see myself doing what's necessary to maintain and nurture that relationship.
That's good. That's good. Come on, man. Wow. Dropping jewels early, man. Dropping jewels. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Wow. You know, one of the things I wanted to, I was thinking about too, Ron, as Sherman was like kind of talking about all the different ways that you've been involved or around, is I remember when you went through the program a few years ago, and you were like, you said something to the effect of like, man, like y'all going hard, y'all real passionate. It's not even that many people here. Like I think like we had a cohort of like maybe like 3 or 4 people. I don't know. It was something real small.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying something to that effect, and I actually thought about that like a few months ago, and that happens every now and then. We have small groups, and like one of the things that I learned a while ago in ministry is like no matter how many people it is, like our focus should not be on the numbers, right? Like it's like no matter how many people, but like when you said what you said, I was like, man, like it's true. Like your energy was high. Like we didn't give it any less because it was only 4 people compared to if they were like 12 or 15 people. Right. And so I think that I think it's important if we talk about even like status, right? Like just because there's only a fewer number of people doesn't mean that we should give any less of ourselves, that we should put any and I think as men it has a lot to do with our integrity, the way that we walk and so forth. So Yeah. I was just
No,
about that.
I like that. So it's making me think. So I talked to a few people who are in the theater and stuff, and they're talking about how like life is but a stage, right? And we're all like we're in our roles, right? And so I think when you're performing like the role of like manhood, when you're performing like the role of fatherhood, you want to give it. You know what I'm saying? You want to give it the best you got.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you're thinking about like, what does this role look like? How do I want to portray this role of manhood? How do I want to portray this role of fatherhood? Then you can be more strategic and practical about the things you say yes to, the things you say no to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I definitely can see it from that perspective too.
That's good, because I think even when I remember that conversation, that's why I'm smirking. I remember the conversation because I think that showed me the type of men y'all were. Right, because I think going back to something that my pastor would have said, been with him for 8 years now, and he was like, it's more about impact than it is about the numbers. And I think one thing, going back to what you said about the integrity piece, that speaks volumes for why you're here, right? And what are you doing it for, right? We're not doing it for the glitz and the glams, and it's different. And I think I've always realized that there's a difference between fame and success, right? And some people want to mirror all that as one, but to be highly known and to be actually impactful in the community, those are two different things. And so you can try to find a way to merge it, right, by continuing to serve and continue to be a servant leader. But I think when I saw you brothers finding there was a problem, right, in fatherhood, specifically in the African American community, and you guys filled the void. You know what I'm saying? And I really appreciated that at a time, because that was something I was going through, right? Not having the right role models in place to help direct you. Like there was no blueprint for me understanding fatherhood growing up, right? Besides the village that I had from a couple men in the church that I knew that was married, but outside of that, like I wasn't growing up saying I want to be a husband. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Those conversations wasn't being had in my neighborhood, where you'll see guys with 4 or 5 different baby moms and you think like that's norm. Like that's our normal. And so growing up with that same mindset, it's like you're not looking to be like, man, I'm trying to make sure I carry these qualities of integrity or be this righteous man where like that might be a whole separate conversation with church. That might be a whole separate conversation with your grams or you know what I'm saying, someone who's real close to you where they could speak into you like that. But it's like, if you don't have that, you'll make the wrong decisions. Yeah. And so I know when I saw that with you brothers, I was like, man, I know what y'all was doing was going to end up being something powerful to where fast forward now, y'all got rooms of 30, 40 people in the rooms where y'all doing these different events and y'all killing it. And so, all of y'all, man, hats off to the work that y'all doing, because I think it's about consistency. Yeah. And y'all have been extremely consistent every time. I think, what was that, 5-6 years ago? Yep. And fast forward now, y'all been continuously consistent, bro. Continually consistent with the youth. And all of y'all are in y'all lanes. And it's like now to come together, it's a force. And so I love the collaboration that y'all doing with the podcast and everything y'all doing with y'all work.
I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate that, man. You talk about being a force, man. You now, in all fairness, we know the city of Buffalo just had their first inaugural Black Men Summit, right? Yeah. Big shout out to our mayor for having the vision, but bruh, I watched you behind the scenes, and so I saw you put the work in. You deserve a lot of kudos, you know what I'm saying, for pulling that event together and just moving all the chess pieces around on the board, man. You did your thing with that, man. I just want to publicly, as Sherman would say, give you your flowers, man, because that was an amazing event. And it's not about numbers, but that was the beginning of something, magical for our city, and especially the Black men here, man. So you need to talk a little bit about that while we got you here, man.
Nah, man. I appreciate it, right? I think I try to always remove myself, man, and always look at the bigger picture of the team, right? How can I build a team? And first and foremost, like I really believe, like I wouldn't have been there if it really wasn't God positioning me in the right position. So before I could even take any kudos, right, I got to look at the man who kind of put it in my mind and was like, yo, I'm gonna stretch your capacity in this, right? Because to your point, right, that's something outside of the work. You know what I'm saying? The daily work. And I know that's conversation that we had on the side where it was like, I'm in committee meetings after committee meetings, and it was extending past work hours on top of being a dad, on top of being a fiance, on top of just daily checking in with mom, grams. I got my grandmother's health proxy on top of just the daily responsibilities. It was so much more, but God just stretched my capacity there because it was a need, right? And even speaking about that, like growing up for me, it was seeing that. I think it was so many things wrapped in, right? First, let's go jump back to the mass shooting, right? I think that was really what spawned really the passion from me, right? Because I think when you look at that situation and you look at the community that it was actually centered towards, all it did was heighten and bring to reality some of the difficulties and challenges that our community faces.
Right.
And what it did, that was like magnified it on a whole national level to now everybody gets to see what we go through, from the harsh treatments to having to step up, but not being even equipped. So you're going out and you're doing and you're not equipped. So really the origin of that whole empowerment summit was like after that, and then showed the challenges. Let's just not have conversations about the challenges. Let's actually create partnerships with individuals who could bring solutions. Yep. And so we covered, every area in my mind that I was growing up in thinking like, man, I wish I had a map or a blueprint to this and this. And as we sat down with the various committees, and Dan could speak to that, but like we was in the different committees and really it was like sitting down and thinking like from a traumatic standpoint of growing up, what did I deal with in the community, in the hood? You know what I'm saying? What was the things that I wish would have happened in terms of a guide or a roadmap? And then how do we, understanding that the man in the household is the foundation, how do we equip the foundation with everything it needs to support everything else, the family, the community, the children? Because again, going back to the empty tank conversation, like we got to pour from overflow. And you can't pour from overflow if you don't have everything, the resources that you need to be equipped. And so when we looked at those 7 key areas, I want to make sure I don't butcher it, but we had mental health and fitness, right? We had investments and insurances. We talked about legal issues, job readiness and education, personal and business credit, home ownership, and then health literacy, more specifically prostate cancer. These were all challenges that we deal with and some of the things we neglect in serving. When we're serving the community, we're doing these different things. We're going out, man, we ain't going to our health checks. And then how many of us know about them? How many of us have access to proper health insurance, proper dental, vision, all those different things where we brought those people in the room and people left with jobs? That was over 400 individuals. When I look at that from a statistics, a background in data analytics, is like, that's 400 families. Right. And the average families in the city of Buffalo is between 3 and 5. So now you multiply that number, what we really served that day out of the 400 individuals that showed up, we really just served a household, over 2,000.
That's a good
And
point.
so at that point, it's like, going back to the whole impact overall, the whole city, 250,000, 300 people in the city, you know what I'm saying? We're now touching percentage-wise 1%, right? How do we now get to this point where this ripple effect continues? And I thought I was in the perfect position, and we had some of the perfect partnerships working with Dan, working with you all, and it was just it was amazing turnout, where I was just like, I stood back, like I had ducked off, and I'm like, man, went and prayed, you know what I'm saying? I had some tears, you know what I'm saying, in the bathroom. I done ducked off while y'all was in. I'm like, man, God, you put all this on me. And the whole time when you doing it, when he put you up to a task like that, the whole time you'll question yourself. You're like, am I built for this one right here? Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, and bro said, moving chess pieces around, it wasn't easy. It was not easy because you got so many seasoned vets who like, man, this is how it should go. And to be honest, like, no disrespect to anybody, I feel like some people was out of tune because you're not in the heartbeat. You're not, like, when you talking to the youth daily, like, damn, he got the heartbeat of the youth. So he could stand up and he could speak on behalf of the youth because bro is in it daily. He in the schools daily. So when you're not in the community and you're not going to that tops, like that tops 3 minutes away from my crib that I grew up in. You know what I'm saying? That is my neighborhood that I grew up in. So what it did was it empowered me from a standpoint where like I'm in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And it put me in position to speak up on behalf of the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so it felt even more impactful, and I felt more pressure, not even from people, but from God, to be like, this is my time to serve. Yeah. And so it felt good, man. And so I think that's where the spark and the push came from. But it was like, it was a team effort, you know what I'm saying? It was a lot of leaning on the different vets, their knowledge, their experiences in government, and being able to say, okay, I understand where the challenges are in the roadmap, and now I got to be able to fit pieces in and make things work. And so it was an amazing success. So kudos to everybody who contributed money, from sponsors, from non-for-profit agency. It was all around, all hands on deck. That was literally one of the first times non-for-profits donated money to an event based on what was going on in the community in the city. So that was big.
That's
that was
huge.
big.
You got any thoughts for?
Man, just thinking back on that day, like I said, man, for me it was just kudos, man, knowing being someone that has planned a number of events and just knowing, how certain things go, and you get something thrown on your lap last second, then you got to pivot and you make it happen, and then it just goes off without a hitch and people don't know. It's just it's a beautiful thing, man, because we ain't gonna talk about it, but man, that was crazy.
Yeah, no, it was, man, bro called me plenty of times on the side, like, yo, you know what I'm saying? We done had many little, from heated discussions all the way down to, and that's how I know that's my brother, you know what I'm saying? Because I think ultimately when you get to a place where, you know what I'm saying, your friendships is like, bro should be able to say whatever he want and how he feel, and I should never be able to take offense to it, right? And there was conversations where bro was like, man, listen, it's dead in the water. I ain't gonna go into it. And I was just like, man, I was like, bro, just trust me. Let me try to wigwag and let me hit you back in a few days. And man, by the grace of God, bro, everything was amazing. And don't get me wrong, we went back to the huddle afterwards, and I'm a stickler. I ain't gonna lie. We went back to the huddle afterwards, and I'm like, nah, we missed this, we missed this, we missed this. And we was in the meetings like, I'm in the meetings like everybody happy, and I'm like, nah, we ain't, you know what I'm saying? But overall, I think what it was like bro said, it was the experience. You know what I'm saying? It was something that was so needed in a community that felt neglected, that felt hurt, that felt bruised, and even more bruised after the Tops mass shooting. It was like, man, we felt like, woo, what's going on? And I think so many times we always taught to be strong. We always taught to like no matter what, act like you good. Whole time that never worked. If we being honest, that don't work. You know what I'm saying? You could stand up all day and act like you good, but at the end of the day, man, you got to have a soft place to land somewhere. Yep. You got to have a place where I could be vulnerable and you could just be you and you don't have to filter nothing. Yep. And somebody should be able to get that raw version of you and still love you and be like, well, I know this is a temporary moment for bro, but I know bro's still going to do the right thing. Yeah. And I think those was conversations that me and bro had. Those was conversations I linked on my fiance where it was days when I'm like, man, tears in my eyes. Like, oh, man, this ain't it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's the frustration where it's like, you know what to do, but there's so many roadblocks, there's so many hindrances, so many people want to have their hand in the move, and it's like, all right, how do I get into a place where everybody's say has moved forward? And I think it was good to really see collaboration between black men, and I think that's something that people speak on too, like, oh, we can't work together. You know what I'm saying? And it showed there, like with that event, man, be honest, from who served and brought food, everything looked like us. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like we even invited everybody afterwards to the brunch, but there was a moment where it needs to be a conversation amongst us, and we need to really hash out where we need to show up at better and be honest. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That was real. So it was a pivotal moment in our city, and I was glad I was able to kind of be a part of orchestrating and helping that, man. So it was amazing.
Yeah. So I wanted to just touch on this real quick, just a simple fact, because you talked about how we're conditioned. So I think one of the other things we're conditioned to as well is to sit back and wait for some like magical like savior to come and rescue us, right? And so you mentioned your age earlier. We the same age. I'm about to be 33 in a month. And so I find myself now in this new role, especially since my grandmother and my grandfather have passed on, reminding my cousins that like we the adults now. So, like, we are the ones that are responsible for our community, the way it looks like, the laws, the policies, the government. Like, we the blame. Like, we the ones that's responsible for changing it or keeping it the same. And so just understanding that, like, it's up to us to assume that responsibility. It's nobody else's job, role, or time or responsibility right now. It's our time. Yeah. And so the other thing that I want to speak to is the fact that you leverage relationships. So like you keep saying you talk to bro, and we are brothers in this work. And so that's when this becomes easier to go past 5. When you did your 9 to 5 and you got to do the 5 to 9, I'm okay doing that if I'm kicking it with my bros. Yeah. It just don't feel like work. I enjoy your company. We just happen to be talking about something productive. I would have hung out with you after work anyways. So I think that once you move to that place, now it becomes a lifestyle instead of an occupation. And I think that's the sweet spot that I'm always trying to live in. How can I do what I love with who I love? And then it's not work. Then it's just me moving in my purpose, and it's my lifestyle.